Volkswagen is the second largest car manufacturer in the world, and their clean diesel cars are the subject of one of the largest consumer scandals in history. But before we get into that, let's give some context. Diesel and gasoline engines function in much the same way, but as is the case with anything in engineering, there is a trade-off. Diesels emit less CO2 than gasoline engines, but also produce much greater levels of fine particulate matter and NOx. NOx is considered an environmental hazard. It can worsen asthma, is a main component of smog, and can cause acid rain. The particulate matter produced by diesels has been easy to take care of since the 80s. But NOx remains a problem. To treat NOx in exhaust gases, a bulky device is normally used. However, on small vehicles, there isn't enough room for such a device, and so a smaller, less effective device called the NOx trap is used. So why use diesels anyway? They're usually a lot more reliable long-term, and in many parts of the world they're cheaper. In most European countries, gasoline is much more expensive than what we're used to in North America, and almost half of new cars on the road are diesels.
The Clean Diesel series announced by VW in 2008 seemed like the perfect series of vehicles. A low-emission diesel vehicle that doesn't sacrifice on performance. The Clean Diesel series was a huge success in the US and internationally, and won several environmental awards. Unfortunately, it was too good to be true. In 2014, independent researchers performed road emissions tests and found that VW clean diesel cars had NOx emissions ranging from 15 to 40 times the legal limits in the US. But then how did the vehicles pass the government's emissions tests? Their Environmental Protection Agency threatened VW to not certify their 2016 models and ordered a recall. In response, VW admitted to using a defeat device in order to cheat the lab-based emissions tests. Approximately 11 million cars were implicated worldwide, 500,000 of which in the US. These included the VW Beetle, Golf, Jetta, Passat, and the Audi A3. The defeat device VW used was software-based and was able to identify the conditions of a lab test and adjusted emissions to reduce NOx emissions. It did this by measuring a variety of parameters, including wheel speed, steering wheel movement, and ambient temperature. Once a lab test was detected, the software would inject more fuel into the engine, which leads to more unburned fuel in the exhaust. The unburned fuel increases the effectiveness of the NOx trap, and thus producing less NOx emissions. Overall, a peer-reviewed study estimated that 59 premature deaths would be caused in the US alone by the excess emissions caused by the VW models sold between 2008 and 2015.
Who's responsible? How high did this go? The U.S. president says it was not a corporate decision.
But this was a couple of software engineers who put this in for whatever reasons.
VW is trying to get the United States of America to believe these are a couple of rogue engineers. I categorically reject that.
After many legal battles, VW has been forced to offer buybacks for the affected vehicles and paid a series of environmental fines. The scandal is currently estimated to cost VW a total of $30 to $49 billion worldwide.
Volkswagen needs to stand up and say, okay, we understand, we will buy your car back.
Now, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. In 1998, 7 large truck manufacturers were found to be using similar defeat devices for emissions tests, though this scandal was a much larger scale. In 2019, investigations and lawsuits are still ongoing. Notably an important court case that is going on in Germany, wherein Volkswagen Group is based. Within this case, it is the first time that many senior engineers and executives will be speaking publicly concerning the events leading up to the scandal. In September, several executives were charged with manipulating the stock market, and just this week news broke that Volkswagen's former CEO, Martin Winterkorn, was implicated in the decision to deceive US authorities.
Even though it has been more than 4 years since the scandal broke and Volkswagen has begun the process of repaying its debt to society, there is still a long road ahead. In response to the scandal, Volkswagen revised its supervisory board to have members with a legal background to ensure the company proceeds with decisions ethically, hence redefining their targets and creating a new corporate structure. Additionally, the Environmental Protection Agency and other international governing bodies have revised their policies concerning greenhouse gas emissions. The consequences of Volkswagen's actions were severe, and there's a lot to learn from this scandal. Notably how no one within Volkswagen decided to take a stand against the deception and become a whistleblower. We don't think the main takeaway from these events should be that Volkswagen is an evil company, nor should you think that diesel engines are terrible for the environment. What you should take away is that some corporations have and will continue to put profits over health and environmental issues, and it leaves us to wonder what other scandals continue to go unnoticed.